I think the first thing that we can do is settle into our meditation posture. This is one of the things that they do go through in the session 1. And I'm sure you've all heard this 1,000,001 times before. If anyone's done any Lam Rim, attended any Lam Rim teachings, it's all in there. So for those of us who are sitting at a desk with the feet on the ground, the suggestion is to have your feet hips width apart, so you don't have your legs crossed, which tends to be kind of comfy for us all, but actually it changes the alignment of the spine. So you have your feet flat on the floor and really try and get a sense of the balls of the feet on the floor. And really a nice thing to do is to grab a tennis ball. I don't know if anyone has a tennis ball around. If any of you have dogs, you might have a tennis ball. Oh, you have a tennis ball. Do you have one, Mary? Phyllis? Felice doesn't have one. Oh, excellent. So, what you can do, in fact, right now, is you can take that ball and start rolling it backwards and forwards. So, Felice, bring the ball next week, and we'll do some foot warm-up exercises with it. So just while I'm talking, you can just roll the feet backwards and forwards and really try and get some, it really actually kind of stimulates. We have a lot of acupuncture points there. So you can just roll that ball around, really dig into the heel, the front part of the foot, the toes, then move it over to the other part. You can really get into the arch of the foot as well. And again, the toes and the top part of the foot, the sort of the sole of the foot, the heel. And then just even that, 1 or 2 minutes of doing that, you start to feel a little bit more relaxed, but also a little bit more invigorated and probably a little bit more focused as well. So when we're sitting with the legs down, with our feet on the ground, we can just, I think for the purpose of this session, you can have your hands just wherever it is comfortable in your lap. The correct meditation mudra is your camera. Right hand nestled in the left with the thumbs touching, and just sort of resting very gently in your lap. But, it doesn't... I think at this point, it just what is comfortable for you, what works for you. And my guess is keeping your hands together like this with the thumbs touching is just to keep this energy focused. Just you're keeping like an energy circle. So if any of you are doing the Tai Chi practice with the Tai Chi master at the center, he probably talking about Chi and Dantian and things like that. So the next thing is to have the shoulders aligned with the hips. I mean, apart from anything, it's helpful in order as we get older to have our posture, as correct as possible. It's also, as we're aligning our spine, we can take our ears and just imagine someone is pulling them up and gliding the head back so it is in line with the shoulders. Then you can imagine your spine as a string of pearls of light. And you're putting some space in between those, in between those vertebrae. As they lengthen, the neck lengthens. And just take some nice deep breath and just notice as you're getting a little bit taller, how you're managing to kind of stretch out there. It's not forced, but you might notice all those little muscles and tendons and space in between the joints now, in between the vertebrae. So now the thing is they talk about tipping the head forward, but really you're just allowing the chin to drop slightly. So you're hinging from the top of the neck. So you're not just dropping your head forward like this. If you do that, you're going to go to sleep. It's also quite bad for the posture, for your posture generally, to allow the head to be leading you forward. And apparently, according to my chiropractor, it damages the brain if your posture is kind of like this. And as we get older, of course, all our muscles start to weaken. It gets more and more difficult. It's a fight against gravity. So it's really important to try and just keep ourselves upright. And she has in her office, when you're paying, she has stand tall. So if you'd forgotten between the time you left the office and the time you got to the front desk, it's like, oh, okay. Anyway. So if your eyes were open, they would be down, like looking along the length of the nose to a spot on the ground in front of you, maybe a couple of inches ahead. And this is going to differ according to the tradition you're in and according to who's teaching you. So Kadrila, who we spent the weekend with down in Nana Medicine Buddha, advocates meditating with the eyes open. I suspect she is able to meditate with her eyes completely open. And sometimes it does look like that with her. But, I'm not there yet. I find it a bit distracting. So I prefer to have my eyes closed. And then I notice when I'm starting to nod off or space out, I crack my eyes open slightly and just let some light in. Like Lenny Cohen. The cracks are where the light comes in. So you can just crack your eyes open slightly, allow the light to come in. It does help to brighten the mind. We just have to be very careful that we don't allow our minds to get dull if we keep our eyes closed. It's very easy to bliss out and space out. But that's not exactly the point of meditation. It does help. So then we take our attention to the tongue. It's usually resting on the tip of the roof of the mouth, the tip of the tongue. And this, if you are meditating for long periods of time, this helps to stop from dribbling and needing to swallow all the time. So, why would you think that would matter? Well, if you are meditating quite deeply for a long time and your energy is getting quite subtle, any tiny little movement is going to be disturbing. So spittle kind of dribbling out of your mouth or needing to swallow, while it's not a big deal when we're just walking around our everyday life, when you're in a very, very subtle state of meditation, it can be quite disturbing. This is also why they say when you're meditating, don't meditate next to a raging waterfall, crashing ocean, raging river, place that's very windy. You need everything to be kind of quiet and still. Otherwise, it can disturb the winds. I spent a year on Kangaroo Island, which is south of Adelaide, so south of South Australia, southeastern Australia. And it's in between the Antarctica and the mainland. So this place is windy, really windy. And some days it would sound like a freight train was coming through. And then other days it would be completely quiet, surrounded by kangaroos and bush sounds, birds. But there was one meditator there. He was doing a 3-year retreat. He said next time he does a long retreat, he's going to dig a hole in the ground, meditate in the hole. I was like, good luck with that. Anyway. So next, relax the jaw. And we'll come back to the jaw, but then bring your attention to the crown of the head and relax scalp. So we're relaxing the scalp. We're just letting, I was so surprised when I started doing this, how much tension I actually hold in my scalp. So I like this image of almost you're letting all the hair go. You're releasing the hair. And then when you let the scalp go, relax the scalp, then you start to notice how much tension you're holding in your face. And that's just amazing to me. It's like, wow, I didn't know I was even holding that. So you can relax your brow and the nose, the eyes, the cheeks, the mouth. And then go back to the back of the head, the scalp there, and particularly focus on the base of the skull, the occipital bone. And just release that. And just doing that, then all of a sudden the ears come in. Release the ears and the inner ear and the temples. And go back to the back of the tongue. And when you think about relaxing the back of the tongue, you automatically relax the jaw. So we're not collapsing here, we're just kind of releasing things. And then you can go to the back of the neck. Just notice the tension you're holding there, and just are you holding your shoulders in a defensive kind of position? So let the shoulders drop down, shoulder blades drop down. Then relax the throat and the chest and the belly. And your limbs, your arms and legs, and then all your fingers and hands, feet and toes. We've almost given ourselves a bit of an energetic massage here, just thinking. And then check whether you've kind of slumped or not. And just always a matter of continuously checking, aligning, dropping the shoulders, relaxing, lengthening. So another thing you can think of in order to stop the upper back from rounding is imagine you have a string of light in your sternum, and it's just kind of pulling you a little bit forward. So we're not arching our back here. It's just we're counteracting a slump in the upper back. Maybe if there's a kyphosis developing, you're just leading a little bit with the sternum, this string of light here. And remember to breathe. It's so important, particularly as we're in front of a computer for an hour and a half, to remember to breathe. So take a nice deep breath. Now I'll go through our meditation like we do in the evening and the morning. And you can just notice the sensations of the air as you're inhaling and exhaling. So we can start by noticing the sensations of the air moving in and out of the nostrils. It's a little bit cooler as you inhale. When you exhale, it's a little bit warmer. And where I did my initial meditation training with the Vipassana of Theravada tradition, they would have us focus on a spot at the base of the nose. But it's really going to differ according to where you have been trained and the shape of your nose, really. So you can feel the sensations of that breath. And if you like, you can also focus on the rising and the falling of the chest, the rising and the falling of the belly. But just choose one. Don't try and focus on all three at the same time. You'll feel a bit crazy. And then it's good just to be aware of some sounds in your environment, whether you've got people in your home, pets. So it can be a little bit distracting. So we just have to allow ourselves to know that these sounds are there, and then allow the sounds to be there without wanting to run off and investigate with our mind. Because that's what we always do. Any happy chance to be distracted, we're like, oh, good. Some distraction. I think I'll just go check that out. I just allow the sound, just leave them alone, allow them to be there. And the next thing we can do is just check what's going on in our mind. So I don't know what kind of day you've had today. The mind could be different today than it was this time yesterday. Different things have happened. So just notice what's going on today and just know that whatever is going on today, it's perfectly fine. It's all okay. However you are turning up this evening, it's perfect. But then as we have been doing lately, you can categorize these thoughts that are arising. So we'll have maybe angry thoughts. We'll be planning things. So they're planning thoughts. We have memories. We have loving thoughts. We make up stories. So if you notice that you've got carried away with a story, particularly if it's something that hasn't actually even happened, just try and let it go. Put these things on a little white cloud or a little white lotus or even in a helium balloon and just let it float off. And I'm really loving this analogy from Mingyur Rinpoche. It's a river. So he suggests that we put ourselves on the bank of the river and just watch it flow on by. So just check the quality of your river this evening. Is it rocky? Is it smooth? Is it deep? Is it a shallow little creek that's kind of meandering slowly through the forest? What does your river look like? Is it clear? Can you see the bottom? Maybe there's some fish in there. So just notice, is it all churned up and muddy? And then notice that actually you're sitting on the bank of the river and you're looking at it. And as long as you're out of the water, you're free from that water. You're free from that river. Particularly if it's raging and you're sitting observing. So here comes the benefit of taking a step back and watching what's in the mind without judgment, without criticism, without negative self-talk. So we'll be looking a little bit at discernment today. So we're going to bring in all the people of our life. So start with your friends. Then you can bring them into your vision, the ones you really love and take care of, who take care of you. They've got your back. When you're upset, you call them. No. Somehow they find a way to soothe you, calm, help you. People in your life who feel enthusiastic and happy when you are doing well. And there are folks in our life who aren't particularly fond of us. We're not really fond of them. Maybe they've harmed us. So no, we are on this path of, trying to be compassionate towards others. But sometimes there are people that we just need to stay clear of. But also being aware that these relationships we have can change all the time. And then there's our strangers. And a stranger could become a friend or an enemy. An enemy can become a stranger or a friend. A friend can become an enemy and a stranger. And maybe there's a person or persons in your life who these changes have happened to you. And the other thing that they're asking us to do in terms of developing equanimity is to just try and think about, contemplate this idea that everybody is equal in their wish to be happy, their wish to be free from suffering, and in having this unbelievable capacity for an enlightened mind. So I think we'll do this practice, these series of practices today for the benefit of all these people of our life and, by extension, all sentient beings. And take a nice deep breath. So we'll do our 9-round breathing. We haven't done it for a while before we start. I just wanted to check that everyone here knows what that is. If you don't know what that is, you do know? Felice, you haven't done it before. Okay. So there's some people here that want to review it. It's a 9-round breathing it's called sort of like cleansing the airs. So they talk about the mind riding on the wind. And we have all this kind of series of channels, psychic, energetic channels in the body. So if you've ever done any yoga or Ayurveda or any Tai Chi, if you've done any acupuncture, acupressure, they all talk about these channels. So we're not going to go into very much detail because in Tibetan Buddhism, they go into different colors, blue and red and this and that, but we're going to stick to a very simple version. Otherwise, it gets complicated. You're going to ask questions that I can't answer. We don't want that. So, but I want to keep it simple. But it's basically a way to kind of ground us. And when I did this quite a few years ago, I was leading a course down in, so not Pebble Beach, where it's Laguna Beach, down south from here. And I introduced this meditation, and one of the people who was in the course told me this story about how they were having a bit of difficulty with their husband, who was an actor, and something to do with money and the boys and this and that, and they were separating. And there was some discussion about college money versus camp money and all these kind of complicated things that happen in families. And he made some comment about one of the boys that really upset her. So rather than reacting, what she did was she decided to go and sit on her bed and do the 9-round breathing before she actually spoke. And I just thought that was amazing, because this person wasn't really, wasn't really particularly Buddhist, wasn't particularly practicing, but they decided to use this as a tool to not create any more negativity in their relationship than that was already there. So I was super impressed, and wish at times I could remember to do that myself. But anyway, so this is a tool that you can use. So anyway, I am going to mirror you because I have, otherwise it gets confusing. So we breathe in through the right nostril. You can block your left nostril. If you see me do this, because I'm trying to figure out where I am, with your right finger, and breathe in blissful, radiant white light. So you imagine you're filling the whole of your body with this blissful, radiant white light. And then you breathe out through the left nostril, all this kind of attachment energy, unhealthy desire, grasping and neediness, anxiety, insecurity. So you can already get a sense of what it is, a sticky, yucky, grasping, neediness, unhealthy desire. You breathe that all out as thick, black, yucky smoke. So you do that 3 times. Then you change over. It doesn't exactly matter, really, fingers, this and that. You just have to block the nose. I do it with the opposite finger. So you breathe in through the left nostril, again, blissful, radiant white light, and pause at the top of the breath. And then breathe out through the right, all your anger energy. And that's hatred, jealousy, bitterness, depression, grudges, disappointment, all of this. You breathe that out, let it go, get rid of it. That also disappears into space. It's thick, black, yucky smoke, and it just goes. Do that 3 times. And then breathe in through both nostrils. No fingers this time. Blissful, radiant, white light. Pause at the top of the breath. And then breathe out all your ignorance. So if you haven't done or received any teachings on emptiness, this is what it really is. It's about ignorance of not knowing, understanding how things really exist. It's also the ignorance of not appreciating or understanding cause and effect, karma. But if none of those things make sense, you can just make it as simple as on a very conventional level, not knowing how to add up, not knowing how to get from A to B without a map. Just not knowing things. You can make it that simple. But really the true meaning of this is ignorance in the terms of the Dharma. And you do that 3 times. So then we repeat that 2 more times after that. So you're doing 3 sets of 3. Is that clear? Is that clear? Cool. Okay. Do you want me to mirror you? Would it make it easier for you if I mirrored you? Doesn't matter. Everybody? Are you happy? You know it well enough. Okay. All right. So I'll just call out where we're going. Okay. So just again settle into your meditation posture. So breathing in through your right nostril, blocking your left, blissful, radiant white light. And you can make that inhale maybe just a count of 4. Pause at the top of the breath and just breathe out through your left, all your attachment and grasping and neediness and wanting things as thick, black, yucky smoke. You can breathe that out for 4. And do it again. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. Pause at the top of the breath and then exhale. So now breathing in through the left nostril, blissful, radiant white light. And breathe out through the right, all your anger energy. Let it all go. Maybe you have a certain situation that's going on right now. Breathe that out. The energy around your emotions around that. Just breathe it out. Let it go. Breathe in. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. To the right. Okay, now breathing in through both nostrils. Blissful, radiant white light. And pause at the top of the breath and then exhale. All your ignorance. And breathe in. And pause and then exhale. And breathe in. Pause and exhale. So we're going to repeat this 2 more times, and I'll just let you do it in your own time. Doesn't matter if you make any mistakes, but we can have questions at the end. Okay, so let's just do it. So now when we've come to the end of our 9-round breathing, can just feel and notice now versus when we started just a little over 5 minutes ago. And you'll see how easy it is or not to focus the mind, to center yourself, to still your body and your mind and your speech. To kind of subdue any agitation. So we just sit like this for a couple of more minutes and really try and stay in this space of stillness. It's very precious to be able to do this. Okay, everyone, just relax. You're looking all so peaceful. I'd hate to disturb you. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about what we just did? No? Was it clear, Felice? Yeah? Okay, you're muted.
Yes.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Okay. I think that the first thing they're talking about in this session 5 is, you know, we have this marvelous ability for discernment and discrimination. It's an important tool for our own safety. It's an important way in which we learn. It's a very basic function of the mind. It's very important actually for meditation and practice. In some ways, though, we've kind of overdeveloped discernment and discrimination, and we tend to over-apply it. And we're always making distinctions and calling attention to differences in the world. And we discriminate amongst people. And this afternoon, I had an interesting experience. I had to go over to the East Bay, which is a little bit rough over there. Some parts of the East Bay are a little bit rough. So I went into Starbucks, and on my way out, there was something very strange going on. There was a very large black guy. He was big, in a kind of a bomby car. And he was walking with this woman who was very young, but kind of bent over. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I didn't know if she was injured or... And then this dog, little tiny baby dachshund, he no bigger than about this, flew out of the car and ran into the bushes. And he flew into a rage and started screaming at the dog and abusing the dog and beating the dog and, well, hit it, then pulled it up by the scruff of the neck and threw it into the car through the window, and then put his head in the window and started blaming the dog, yelling at the dog, screaming at the dog. And so, of course, there was one guy in the car who was next to his car. There was quite a few people standing around watching. And I'm wondering, what does one do here? But unfortunately, it filled all my expectations of what I would see when I was in the East Bay. And I felt a bit sad about that. This big black guy who was obviously high on drugs, being extremely abusive to this very sweet, cute little animal, and what looked like, couldn't tell, maybe it was his partner. But then I decided, I was looking at this whole situation, and because I don't live over there, I don't know what the what the deal is when you see something like this. Like, what does one do? I knew the police would be way too busy to deal with a little dog being thrown into the bushes, because they have far more things to deal with over there, like murder and drugs and et cetera, et cetera. So I didn't call the police. Anyway, I think it would have been just a nuisance call for them. And then I looked at what the other people were doing, because they were locals. So, okay, so how are they going to act? And they were all standing back looking. And so I just decided I would walk off. And I felt horrible, because I thought that little dog's life is a living hell. And I was telling a friend when I got home, and she said to me, "You don't know, that dog could be saving that woman's life by that man focusing his attention on the dog and not her." There was one way of looking at it. But anyway, just then, as I'm driving home, I'm thinking about all these pets that are in such difficult situations. It doesn't occur, like over here, everyone's looking after their dogs, taking them for walks, feeding them organic food. I mean, it doesn't occur to me that someone would get a pet and then not treat it well. But it just all of a sudden raised I became aware of, oh yes, this does happen. And it's horrible. Anyway, but I immediately started discriminating amongst all the people there, including that guy, and I was very aware of it. It was kind of traumatic to watch. And it just, as I was saying earlier, just confirmed all my beliefs about people who live in the East Bay. And I was just like, oh, this is not really the way to think. But anyway, it was right in my face, and there it was. And then when I got home, I thought, well, I'm going to look up and see what action should I have taken. Oh, there's quite a lot of laws here in California about not interfering, because you could get charged. So then I understood, because I don't know about that. So then I understood why no one else was doing anything. So it was very difficult. Like, if I had gone and taken the dog, I would have been accused of stealing, and I could have been charged. If I'd gone and interfered, I could have been charged. So anyway, I found it, I found it a little bit difficult to not be able to do anything. But anyway, it did bring to mind this idea that we're calling differences to the way we look at the world, and we're discriminating amongst people constantly. And sometimes we think, oh, well, I was right. But this big black man, this dog, and his girlfriend, if it was his girlfriend, every single one of those people want to be happy. And even that puppy wants to be happy. That's why it was running out of the car. It was trying to get away from them. That's what it looked like to me. It may not have been. but it did seem like he was trying to escape. So that even that black man, I mean, he was in such a rage. I felt so bad for him, you know. He was completely unaware of all the people that were around watching. So anyway, that was my afternoon. So let's get back. So then we go to discrimination. So now we're going to our body of light meditation after I've told you the horror stories of the Bay Area. Hope you don't have nightmares tonight. Okay. So let's just go back. Phyllis, have you done body of light with me before? I don't think you have.
I don't think so.
Okay. And I
I'm
don't
gonna
think,
show you why I'm not on video. I have to lie down to do these.
what's going on?
My back and my belly are
Well,
not.
this is great that you're lying down.
Yeah, so I do whenever
well
we're
done.
on.
So it's nice to see you. Thank you for showing your face. Welcome.
My back is really straight.
I am well, good. So I remember one time I was doing a Theravada Vipassana course, and one of the elders of the course, like was this old Burmese man, and he was one of our teachers. And I had a quite strange experience that kind of knocked me sideways, and I went to talk to him about it, and he said, "Oh, no worries, you just lie down." And of course I didn't, because all the Westerners in the course would have thought, oh, can't do that in the Gompa, you know. But anyway, he did give me permission to lie down. He said, if you're having difficulty, you just lie down. So there, you just lie down. And thank you for saying hello. Nice to see you. And then, but just be careful not to fall asleep. That's the only thing.
I took a nap before.
So well done.
I'm not
okay.
sleeping.
So you're not sleeping. Good. And then, Felice, have you done the body of light meditation before? Excuse me.
I don't recall if I have, to be honest.
Okay, good. It's a very sweet meditation. So we'll do that now. Okay, so let's just reset, and everyone else has done it in here. So let's just settle back into our meditation posture. And just allow any tension just to flow out of your body. And, you know, Phyllis, you're lying, so just make sure you're lying straight. So you're not leaning over one side or the other. And might I suggest you have, if you are lying down, maybe something under your knees.
I have a chair under my knees.
You're all good. Well done. That's great. Perfect. So now imagine in the space above the crown of your head a sphere of white light. A little bit smaller than the crown of your head, and it's not solid, it's pure, transparent, white light. It's just simply floating in space above you. So just contemplate the presence of this sphere, just very lightly, being aware that it's there. Don't force yourself to feel it. And if you can't seem to imagine it in a great deal of detail or see it clearly, you just feel its presence, this radiant white sphere of light above the crown of your head, just floating in space. So we'll just think about that for a couple of minutes. And now contemplate that this sphere of light represents and embodies all the universal goodness, loving kindness, and wisdom, which is the fulfillment of your own highest potential.
G-Bird. G-Bird.
Sorry about that. And imagine that this floating sphere of light becomes smaller and smaller until it becomes about the size of a 2 inches in diameter, maybe the size of a ping pong ball. And it sort of descends and dissolves through the top of your head, through the crown of your head, down through the center of your body to your heart chakra. And there it begins to expand. And imagine this pure, radiant white light fills your entire body. And all your organs and muscles and bones and cells and atoms, blood, all the hair on your body just all simply dissolves into white light. Gradually your whole body now is made of light. All the heaviness disappears, all the tension, the aches and pains, problems of the body totally vanish, problems of the mind, any negative attitudes, anxiety, worry, all the disturbing emotions and obstacles, and just imagine any illness dissolving into this wonderful white light. And all the kindness and compassion and wisdom, all the healing energy of the universe fill you completely. And feel blissful and joyful. And if any distracting thoughts should arise, just simply observe them and allow them to dissolve into white light. And contemplate strongly this idea that you have reached a state of wholeness and perfection. And meditate on the blissful experience of being in this state. Now reflect on your goals and aspirations. So what brought you here today? And how might the fulfillment of your aspirations and goals affect yourself and then also those people around you? If your goals are fulfilled, will that bring benefit to you and make you happier? Will it bring benefit to people in your life? So see if you can think about your goals not just benefiting one person, but maybe many, many people. Perhaps all those people of our life that we imagined around us earlier. So whatever virtuous thoughts you have at any point in the day, rather than, we tend to follow the stories, the negative stories, they go on in our mind. But if you find yourself catching a happy thought, like a ray of sunshine, try and expand those thoughts to include yourself and others, and then try and go out like ripples in a pond. This helps us to expand our hearts and to help us think big in the most positive of ways. So we can determine that our aspirations will come to pass and that we will be able to make it happen. We need to have confidence in this. And as I was saying this morning and last night, Kadrala was talking about, on the weekend, Land of Medicine Buddha, Kadrala was talking about needing to purify our channels, to purify ourselves, so that we're open enough that because we're not blocked. So we tend to block ourselves with negative self-talk, negative thoughts. We have negative karmic seeds that can ripen. So we do this purification in a way to dissolve all of that. So it enables all of the goodness to come through. So in the case of this weekend, it was in order to enable us to be able to receive the teaching, the empowerment. But we can apply it to our everyday life. If we are constantly thinking negative things, if we are engaging in negative types of actions, generally I think mostly it's what we do with our speech. We're actually blocking ourselves from being able to receive. We might think that we're not deserving or something like that. It blocks us. So today we've And we do in our evening meditations and the morning meditations, we cover different kinds of meditation and gives you just some kind of idea of the different ways, in the many different ways, because we have different minds. So some things suit people better than others. So here we're going to focus a little bit towards the end of this session on how analytical meditation can be used to transform habitually harmful or unproductive patterns of thinking or emotional responses, and to try and enhance our positive emotional responses and patterns of thinking, which is kind of what we're doing in the evening with the Vajrasattva meditation. So our brains are highly evolved, and the function of our minds are made available to us by means of the brain. We have a vast and considerably more advanced, for the most part, than other beings on this planet, or certainly the beings that we're familiar with. They say, particularly in terms of the Dharma, the human body is the best body to become enlightened in, because we can learn, we can speak, we can hear, we can cognize. So one of the skills or functions that as human beings we have made particular use of is that we have a lot of emphasis in developing our discriminating mind. We are able to discern this from that. We know that we get on the Amazon, we want to buy something, we want this shape, that color, it needs to last this long, it's got to be on sale, there's a deal over here. We know how to do all of that. We make use of it in philosophy. We make use of it in our interpersonal relationships. It's a skill that's used in science, engineering, music, pretty much every human activity. And discrimination, in terms of Buddhism, is mainly a neutral, they call a neutral skill. And whether it becomes positive or negative depends on how we use it. Within Buddhism, we make a distinction between the skill of discrimination that we justifiably call discriminating wisdom, and the function of the mind which falls into discriminating bias, into the tendency towards being opinionated or to judge and prejudge situations. So for me today, my mind was full of it as I was watching this dog being abused. If the dog hadn't been involved, I probably just would have walked past and not thought anything much other than I need to go home. So the distinction that we can think about here is the difference between an attitude of openness and clarity and one of closed-minded bias. So distinguish and discriminate one thing from another is a very, very basic function of the mind. As I said earlier, it's a little bit overdeveloped in us, and we over-apply it even when it's inappropriate to a situation. And we're constantly making distinctions and calling attention to differences as we look at the world. We discriminate among people. And so we started this evening with the friend, enemy, stranger meditations, equanimity. It's not very difficult for us to pull up examples in our lives of people who are our friends and our loved ones. Others that we distinguish as troublesome, and in the text they refer to these people as enemies. And then we have those people that we couldn't care less about as strangers. So firstly, we don't see anything unusual about this. It's quite normal. Everyone has these categories. But it's how we arrive at these distinctions. And we think they're concrete. So in Buddhism, they talk about these three poisonous attitudes of aversion, which is anger, attachment and grasping, and ignorance. So we did that just then in the 9-round breathing. Actually, we started with attachment. Then we did aversion. Then we did ignorance. To the extent to which they control our reactions to things and render our thought patterns, our actions, our reactions to people and things in our lives negative. These three negative states of mind taint our minds, our words, and our actions. So habitually, when we see a person, what do we do? We tend to look at their appearance, their dress, their mannerisms, their voice, and we make a judgment. Oh, I like that person. Oh, I don't really like that one. Stay away from him. Oh, she looks fun. I'd like to be her friend. And we have all sorts of reactions that arise out of preconceived notions we carry around with us. To what extent do our preconceived notions actually apply to people? It's difficult to know, especially at a distance, especially before we get to know them. But nevertheless, we make these judgments and we continue to make these judgments even as we become more acquainted with that individual. Even in the course of a single relationship with one person, we are judging, constantly discriminating. That is good, that is not. So where are our judgments and our opinions coming from? Often we think our judgment, our opinion somehow derives from the other person. That's their fault. They did this, therefore we think this. They did that, therefore our opinion of them is X, Y, and Z. So it's good to watch this process, to slow it down in our mind and observe it carefully in great detail. And over time, we discover that these judgments, these biases, these opinions come from within us. Sometimes has nothing or little to do with the person themselves. Our mind of aversion, attachment are on autopilot. They're kind of freewheeling. And they find an object to latch onto and manifest views about. They color our views. Sometimes our aversion is stronger, and that affects how we see others around us. Sometimes attachment is stronger. But so much is coming from our habitual thought and emotional patterns, and simply covering the people that we meet with a view that they are this way or that. And as a result, we find ourselves, because of these basic negative minds, pushing away or pulling towards everything we encounter. We push away things we don't like. We hold on to things we do. So what are we doing? We're pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling, desperately trying to hold on to the things outside that we think will make us happy, and desperately trying to keep at a distance those things that make us uncomfortable, that we are averse to. Equanimity is not really in our mind. We're constantly in a state of a yo-yo mind, up and down. And because of that, we are vulnerable. We're always kind of at the mercy of any surrounding conditions we happen to find ourselves in, pleasant or unpleasant. We hold them close, we push them away. There is never any stillness in our mind, no peace. In the case of things and people that are neutral to us, it isn't really a state of peace. It's a state of indifference. All those strangers we imagined in our visualization at the beginning of this class are the massive disregarded beings. We don't know them. We don't know their names. They don't know our names. But more worse than that, we don't care. We don't dislike them and we don't like them, but we don't hold them close and we don't really push them away. We just walk by. So these three states of mind, aversion, attachment, and ignorance, they all come down to even one more fundamental attitude, which is, in Tibetan Buddhism, they call it self-cherishing. It's not, I think Venerable Rabbeinu used to talk about this person that had wanted to do this one particular Buddhist course because it was about self-cherishing, and she thought she was going to have a nice, relaxing, self-cherishing weekend. But it turned out to be something completely different. It was what we're talking about right now. So this self-cherishing is our main problem. And it functions through mental habits such as aversion, attachment, and ignorance. And it kind of closes our minds. It disturbs the peace and stillness of our minds. And these are all obstacles to our meditation. And we're not talking in the grosser sense of the obnoxious people that we have all encountered at one time or another, who are just simply oblivious to others and only care about themselves in the grossest possible ways. I mean, that's a manifestation of self-centeredness at the coarsest level. And we all have self-cherishing, we all have self-concern. You may think, well, of course, how else would we possibly survive? But the degree to which we become conscious of that self-cherishing and the degree to which we can minimize its negative effects, to that extent, it is possible for us to overcome our afflictive emotions and develop a little bit more altruistic concern for others and for our planet. So we kind of mustn't beat ourselves up about having self-cherishing. We just need to acknowledge its presence. And we need to know that it's there and how it functions. It's within us and within our own minds. We use meditation to look inside, to observe our minds. And moment by moment, day by day, we understand the layers of our inner obstacles more deeply, all the way down to our self-cherishing, the most fundamental ignorance. And then we can gain control over all our delusions, our lives, and our experiences and our actions. So Lama Yeshe used to say, you do have the power. We do have the power to take control of what goes on in our mind. And that's the bottom line. We can do it. So, you know, the way we are right now is that we're just kind of like freewheeling, as I mentioned earlier. So I want to ask if anyone has any questions before we go on. So I think what I'd like to do is do another meditation and complete this session 5 next week, actually. There was a lot of information there, so I just want to know how it's landing. Anyone? Question?
It's really helpful. Probably it's helpful to know where to direct to continue to read into these attachment and aggression and ignorance. Seems like I have to repeatedly look to even begin to fathom all of that.
And, you know, I think, if you're not alone, it takes years because, you know, we also are conditioned by our language. We're also conditioned by our culture and where we live. You know, like I was saying, I go out for a walk here and everyone's walking their dog and their dogs are cute and everyone's saying hi and it's all very relaxed. Then I go to the East Bay and, oh, no, you don't interfere with that kind of violence. And it's even shocking to see. So it is the way you act, the way you think is very much determined by the environment that you find yourself in. And I think we have to also give ourselves a bit of a break around that as well, because, you know, I studied when I was doing psychology in university. We did a one course on cross-cultural psychology, and our professor said to us, you will never understand a culture until you can speak the language of that culture. So I found that quite shocking, because what it meant to me was that we don't realize the extent to which we are influenced by the language we speak. Well, that's amazing. And I wonder if it's helpful for people who speak more than one language. They may have different viewpoints. So it's interesting. And then with the Tibetans, there is Dharma is embedded in their language. So that I find that fascinating as well. But anyway, it's a great point. Thank you. And it does take time. And it's just a matter of, rather than coming down on ourselves when we've discovered we've kind of lost the plot again, it's like, oh, well, I am a human being. I am human. I'm going to make mistakes, and I'll just pick myself up and just keep moving, and I'll try not to do that again. Or something along those lines, like we just rejoice that oh gosh, that's fantastic. I saw some anger. I didn't know that was there. So it's so much better that we see it than we don't. Like, because, you know, you don't want to be, as I love this analogy Venerable Rubini uses, driving down the freeway at 90 miles an hour and the wheels are falling off the car because you didn't get it serviced. So, you know, and then all of a sudden the wheels have come off and you're having a crash. It's like, oh, you don't want that. You want to be able to take the car in and get it serviced every now and then. So if you keep that up, then the wheels won't fall off when you're in the middle of a high-speed trip down the highway. I don't know. What do you call it over here? Is it a highway or a freeway? I don't know anymore. I don't know how to speak.
California's got freeways. It just depends on what state you're in. There's your language.
We have freeways, but they call it Highway 101.
True.
Like, I know, right? So I'm very confused. Anyway, I call it freeway, and then I call it highway. Then I just call it 101 because I just don't know. Anyway, any more things people want to share? We've got 10 minutes left. Otherwise, we can do another little meditation if you like. Would you like to do that?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. So, all right. Karen, if you could just... Oh, did you want to say something, Karen?
Yes, actually, when you were talking about the dog story, I thought I've had a similar thing at times in the grocery store
Oh,
with mothers and children, or parents
oh,
and children,
oh,
and you know, seeing sort of verbal abuse or even smacking the kids, and it's that same dilemma. What do you do? Do you say something, or do you... And I ended up a lot of times just to myself, just saying Om Mani Padme Hum,
yeah.
and trying to send loving kindness into the situation, because I felt powerless to intervene, and that it wouldn't maybe escalate the situation.
Yeah.
And trying to just send out loving kindness, I guess, to those involved.
I was thinking, doing just exactly that as I was driving home. But what the main point for me was, there's laws around not interfering. Here in California, anyway. You have to be very careful, otherwise you are going to be charged yourself. So I found that in a way it absolves people of responsibility, but it also means that you need to find some kind of higher power, like the police or the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals or whatever, or else you contact the store manager, because there's cameras everywhere anyway.
Yeah.
So there is no need actually to get involved. And as I read, I did a bit of a checkup when I got home. I could have gotten myself into legal trouble. So it kind of, in a way, relieves you. And this friend I talked to said to me, and you could have been hurt, injured,
Yes.
and then you're not able to look after anyone. So by trying to intervene, you get injured yourself. So Anyway, yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I think with children it would be even worse. So, I mean, I think though if I did see that, I would just report it to the store manager. But they probably already knew what was going on. They must see it every day, particularly places like Target.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
Walmart, so
Yeah, same.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have 8 minutes left. So let me see what we can do just to finish. I think I want to do this. We'll continue with session 5 next week.
Venerable Katie, I may not be able to make it to the live session next week. If I don't, I will watch it and then return the next week.
Cool. Okay. We have to find out, as Mary was saying, whether actually we even are able to have a session on the 21st. So we think it might be only just these 2 sessions, but do watch it. I know you're coming to some of the other sessions. So, and we will be having that. I think I'm going to make it a day long. It'll be 2 sessions of 2 hours or an hour and a half each of question and answer. So if any questions come up, you're very welcome to write to me or else just to write them down and keep them for our next session. Yeah. Okay. So let me see what we can do in 5 minutes now. Ooh.
Venerable Katie,
Mhm.
I had a comment. I really liked hearing what you said about the 9-round breathing, about the workshop you did, and where the student or practitioner, before she responded to her husband, she did the 9-round breathing. Because boy, I know it, but I'm so glad I'm here tonight, because it's like I needed the reminder of this, because I mean, I know it, but when I'm taking care of my mom, this is something I can just go sit out on the patio
Right.
and say, I'll be right back in 5 minutes.
Exactly. Let me just think about that for a moment and take yourself away. Yeah.
So
Best.
it was just such a beneficial session tonight to go through
good.
it again,
I'm glad.
and actually to see all the materials posted too, so I can review some of the meditations on the materials link as well.
It might be a little bit different to what we did, but yeah, go for it. Just definitely, I would encourage you to do that. Go through it if you have time. It's also available online with Venerable Connie Miller, I think, leading it. She's a wonderful writer, actually. She wrote most of it. So yeah, she's put this course together beautifully. Yeah. But I'm very happy to hear that, Mary. So now we have 4 minutes left. So what I would like to do, if no one else has anything to say, why don't we just meditate? And then so what we've done today is we looked at how to sit, our correct sitting position. We've done a little bit of equanimity meditation. We've talked a little bit about discernment and bias, and how our mind tends to run away, and we have all these prejudgments. We talked a little about the 3 poisons: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And we did a 9-round breathing meditation to try and purify some of those. And we did a body of light meditation, which would help to, maybe also clear some of the channels. So it's also a very sweet and calming meditation to do. So just reflect on, and then there was a lot of information at the end. So just reflect in your own mind what we've just done in the last hour and a half. It feels like it's gone very fast to me. And see what you can take from today's session into your week. And maybe there's a thought or an idea or a meditation, just like Mary was saying. She can Rather than answering her mum straight away, she can just go and sit out on the porch, and it only takes 5 minutes to do that meditation, the 9-round breathing. And Mary, you don't have to do 3 sets of 3. You can just do 1 set, and that would help. Takes your mind into a different space. And it is challenging taking care of elderly people because their minds are wandering. They're afraid of death. They're playing games. They don't remember this or that. They tell one person one thing, the next person the next. So it requires a huge amount of patience and just remembrance. And rejoice in your efforts about, Mary, particularly what you're doing. And everybody here tonight, rejoice in the effort that you made to come here and spend an hour and a half of your life when you could have been eating and watching telly or having your relationships. But you decided to come along here instead. So that's fantastic. And I thank you very much for coming. So let's just very briefly dedicate all the positive energy we've created this evening to all the people of our life, to our poor puppy and our little puppy family out there in Oakland area who may be having a very difficult evening. To all the people, maybe dedicate for all the people who don't have peaceful lives, who live in houses where there's a lot of yelling and fighting and discord and screaming. So just send lots of love and compassion and kindness out towards all of those people. So all the merit we've created this evening, dedicate to them and to ourselves as we move along our spiritual path. Okay, everyone. Thank you so very much. So beautiful to have you here. And I'll clarify with Venerable Dundra, but what we'll do next week anyway, regardless of what we're doing the following weeks, we are going to finish what we started today. So yeah, come back. I'd love to see you again. And I'll put something up on Facebook so there might be more people here next time. I didn't do anything this week. Okay. Mary, thank you so much for hosting. I appreciate so much. Thank you. Might see you tonight. I might see all of you tonight. Oh, well, we'll see who comes.